Hello and welcome to the Board Game Barbecue Podcast, episode 310, brought to you by Advent Games and our Patrons. You've got Conor here in the host chair, and I'm super excited to be back on the podcast with two other men who I say I've got beard envy of because their beards are far better than mine. The first one is my man up in Sydney. Jules, how are you, dude?
Doing well. I feel freshly groomed. How about that?
Freshly groomed. Jules also running, if you would have seen, a very sleek aerodynamic look up top now. But one man who is full volume, not just in tone, but also in head on hair and head on face. It's Joe. What's going on, Joe?
Hello. I was just thinking as you were talking, I kind of look like if I put both of your faces together, because you've got like a light beard and thick hair, and Jules is the opposite.
Yeah,
that's it.
This is not a fashion podcast. It's not a grooming podcast. It's a board game podcast. And like I said, I'm super excited to be back in the host chair. We actually got some pretty cool stuff to talk about. We're running it back a couple of times in the sizzles, which would be cool. But Jules, I know you absolutely adore the first game on your list. Tell us a little bit about Art Society.
Yeah, it's just something I've been playing recently. Joe got to introduce it to me when we were at Adrian's house for the big shindig a little while ago, and I finally got my own copy. It's insanely hard to get.
It's still hard to get.
Yes,
Wow.
how would I logistical reasons, I suppose, because
Gotcha.
I actually tried to pick it up at Gen Con when I was there, and because Mighty Boards had a booth and they had a big banner showing it off, plus a ton of other games. And I tried to go to their booth to buy it, and they said, "Oh, no, the stock hasn't arrived yet." I was like, "All right, well, I'll come back on the next day." And then I found out on the last day, they only had 8 copies at Gen Con. Like, 8 copies for the whole of Gen Con.
I reckon they heard about the Guy Project 50 copy.
Oh yeah, they had to one up them.
No. We're gonna make this rarer. We're gonna go 8 copies for all.
I was so upset. But then I still had it on pre-order. I can buy games through work, obviously, but we had ordered a small amount to come in. I'm gonna go off topic a little bit here. I would love to do a Patreon podcast at some point talking about the supply and stock ins and outs of board games in Australia, because something that people might not realize is that often suppliers, not just where I work at Let's Play Games, but other suppliers as well, will often do orders to demand. So unless stores are actually placing orders with their suppliers, then the suppliers will just order to how many pre-orders they have and nothing more. So if stores would place orders for Art Society, as an example, more would come into the country. So I know that there are more coming, but the batch that I got my copy in, there was only 60 for the whole of Australia.
Wow.
So, yeah. Anyway, that's a whole nother topic for another time. But I'm very happy. I have my copy. I have played it twice since I've gotten it. And it is delightful. It is crunchy. It is so simple to learn. But yeah, it's just so good. I wish there was more supply of this game. So many more people need to try it.
So what do you like about it so much? I know we just sort of covering it briefly, but you said it's crunchy. What are some of the cool decisions that you get to do?
So it has the mechanism where you are bidding an amount from different cards that you have numbered 1 through 20. And obviously highest bid gets first pick of the art pieces that are available. But the bid you placed on the previous round becomes the tiebreaker. So every time you're placing a bid, it not only matters for the current round, but the next round that follows, which is really, really cool. And the other thing I love is that the last piece not taken, it increases the prestige of that painting type. There's this good tension between I want to go first because that piece fits perfectly there, and putting it there will give me bonus points, versus going last and getting a choice of what painting's going to increase the prestige for the end of the game. Brilliant tension. It's always pulling you in multiple directions.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it does a really good job of applying those decision spaces across the different phases of the game.
Yes.
So you're not like on your turn, or you've got all these decisions you got to make and all these things you got to consider. The bidding side of things. What you didn't say, Jules, is that each number you only have one of each number. So
yeah, that's right.
If someone's played their 20, that that you can beat them at something if you've got your 20 still. So there's that decision space, and then, like you said, leaving which painting till last, and then in between that, thinking about where you're going to put your painting. So it's like these crunchy decisions that are at different points of the different phases of the game. So it's actually quite a nice, smooth game experience.
Absolutely. It takes, 45 minutes to play or so. It's quick, and it's just beautifully presented as well. It has a nice sort of felted insert where all the pieces nestle in, and you just pass the whole box around with leaving the tray in. So good.
Even the box's dual layer, like the front, front cover of the box,
the front of the
layer.
box, recessed board game box lid. Yeah, very, very cool.
I can't remember how many times you guys played it up at Adrian's, Joe. Was it more than once?
Yeah, we played back to back.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was like, I want to get in on that, but people had sort of said, I really want to play it over. So I'd be keen to try it when we get a chance. So so that's Art Society. And the actual art behind it is cool too. Like,
it's beautiful.
It's awesome. Like, it'd be a bit of a shame, wouldn't it, if it was like, it's a game about art. It was all, although would that be funny? Like, it's a game about art, and it's like really, really crap art. I don't know.
It's like kindergarten finger paintings or something.
I want to play that game now. I definitely want to play that game. Spud stamps, yeah.
A game about those paintings that kids bring home to their parents. That's a cool game idea.
Speaking of going off tangent, did you guys, or was it just my weird Queensland kindergarten I went to? Did you ever do the die with the bubbles? So you blew the bubbles.
I'm sure I did. Yeah,
100%. Of course.
Yeah. There was always one kid who sucked up the paint dye instead of blowing bubbles, and he's hosting this show. So
I was going to say, were you that kid?
Yeah, it was me. Very good. Anyway, we'll get back to talking about board games. Joe, tell us a little bit about Links with an X.
Yeah, Links with an X. This is a game that we were sent a review copy for, and I wanted to grab it because it seemed abstract, something I don't usually go for. It was abstract. It looked like a quick game. It's quite colourful. So Links is a game. It goes up to 4 players. I've only played it 2 players so far with my Dan. And it's essentially, it even says it on the box, it's essentially rock, paper, scissors. So it says, if you know the game of rock, paper, scissors and noughts and crosses, you know how to play this game. Because it's basically both. So the way the game works is, I can talk about the 2-player game. Each person has their own color. So, for example, I was blue, Dan was pink. And you're laying out these tiles that are double-sided. On one side, it's got your color. And on the other side, it's got either a rock or paper or a scissors. And you take turns placing tiles out onto the table in front of you, and you're placing them out in an imaginary 4x4 grid, essentially. So you've got the constraints of that. The person who will win is the person who will either put 3 of the same symbol in a row, so 3 rocks, for example, or 3 scissors, or if you have 3 of your symbol showing up. So like either basically if you've got 3 face-up symbols that match, or if the tiles are face down, so just 3 of your symbols essentially in a row, column or diagonal. So it's very similar to noughts and crosses. And the, I guess, twist in the game is that if you place a face-up tile, you get to take a couple more tiles from your supply. So you'll always have, I think, 3 or 4 tiles in your hands. You start with 3 or 4 tiles in your hand, and then you'll get more if you place face-up tiles. And then you can place tiles on top of other tiles, both yours and your opponent's, if you flip it upside down so that your color is showing. So that's how you can kind of negate someone else's win, essentially, or, row or column or diagonal. That's pretty much it. It's really, a game plays in 5 minutes max. It took a minute to teach. It's really simple. It goes up to 4 players, apparently. I haven't looked at how you play 4-player competitively, but there's a team variant as well where you can play 2v2, for example. So it was a really nice, quick game, very colourful. And we played 5 games in a row with 15, 20 minutes. So it was very quick.
Very cool.
Yeah. So are you thinking this could be, a game that you could potentially play with your daughter when she gets a bit
Oh,
older,
definitely.
or
Definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, this would be perfect for non-gamers, perfect for people who know, like if you've got a family member who knows noughts and crosses, easy, just teach it to them and you'll happily play it. So,
yeah, cool. I just wanted to give a little bit of a plug to someone who had a demo at PlayCon, and that's Keith Dylan Franks. I got to play his game called Cutlass, which is a pirate card battling game, but it's less so about sort of a 1v1 or attacking, life and things like that. And I know you're going to talk about probably the most famous one of those a bit later, Jules. And it's more about, it's actually closer. It's an engine builder, but it's still got that really cool like deck building element, and the whole point is for you to activate your cards and then activate them in order. And each card will have two symbols, and depending on which of the two symbols you want to activate, you will trigger the rest of those cards in your card row. And it's themed about pirates, and I'm always keen for a cool pirate game. What you do is you have multiple sort of parts of the turn, and it's not as complicated as some of the other card battlers. And I think that's what Keith, when I was speaking to him, that's what he kind of wanted. He's sort of was a bit jaded with Magic and some of those other card battlers, and he kind of wanted to strip it down and take what was fun. So you still have the concept of spending cards to play for cards, so that's there. So similar to things like, off the top of my head, I think of like Marvel Champions, where that's what you do there. You spend cards to play for cards. And it's like you're building a crew, these pirates. So and the other cool part is if you're keen to play this game, he's also on Discord. So it's the Cutlass Discord that you can join. And I actually got my brother to join up because he's big on card battlers as well.
Cool.
So it's really, really cool. And when I was there, I said, "Oh, so what's the go? Like, what are you hoping to do?" And he just said, "Oh, put the word out and join up, and then we'll go from there." But he already has like these starter decks ready to go. It's like a fully formed game. So I'll be really keen to see how, if and when he sort of puts this out. So if you saw him at PlayCon, Keith was the big guy, like big tall guy, taller than me, with the full-on fluffy pirate shirt and things like that. And he has a whole heap of other games too that he's working on as well. So this is just one. Yeah.
he was easily best dressed at PlayCon. He had that really cool, like elaborate pirate coat, and I actually got to interview him. I didn't actually get to play the game, which was a shame. It looked really good. And
I think
he's such a nice dude.
Really like it, Joe. Like the whole engine building and it's mean because you are sort of attacking and trying to get rid of cards, but you don't attack to get rid of cards. You attack to stop them from activating. And then what you can do is you can use them to repair or effectively heal. Like it's just called repair, and it's either repair a card or whatever. And it stops them from activating in the run. It does remind me a little bit of Lorcana, Jules.
Okay.
So that way how like you're not trying to defeat the other opponent. You're trying to outscore them.
Yeah.
Which is a nice change to that. So that's Cutlass by Keith Dylan Franks. Jules, you will talk about this game any chance you get. Spacefaring, different planets. You've gone back to it. You've gone back to your old flame.
I have, yes. So I've gone back to Unsettled, and I backed the second Kickstarter they ran with the additional planets, and have released more directly on their website just recently. But it's just been a long time since I'd come back around to it. And it was after Gen Con, and I think I was still a little sick, so I was at home, not much to do. And so some solo gaming was the proper choice. I hadn't done any solo gaming for a while. Anyway, I put a poll out to the community and said, well, which of these three planets should I do? And everyone picked the ice planet. And oh boy, like I have played all the other planets and all of the other missions to this point. So I have, up until these new planets, I'd done absolutely everything that Unsettled had to offer. I've only done the first mission of this new ice planet, but oh boy, so there's a couple of things different. One is typically most of the planets, you can do any of the tasks in any order. Now, for me personally, I always went A, B, then C, but it wasn't any reason you had to complete them in that order. Now, for this particular ice planet, you must start with task A, because I'm pretty sure that with the tasks on this planet, there's going to be a continuous story that goes through the 3 missions. And it was really challenging and really fun. So many dynamic twists. I'm not going to spoil anything, because previously the lava planet was my favorite, but this first mission alone makes me feel like this could jump to favorite.
Yeah,
And
cool.
it is just such a fun game, so challenging, especially playing the planets the first time, unveiling what do I have to do next, what crazy twist is there going to be. But it makes me excited for the other 2 planets, and when I've done those, I'll go and buy the next 2 that they have released, because it's just so good. It's so good. But yeah, if you are wanting to try Unsettled, we do have copies in the Board Game Barbecue library. So it looks like a big box and intimidating, but I'd actually recommend picking up and giving it a go, or just watch a video before you go to the game day. It's not really that hard to learn. There's good player aids, and it's not that hard to pick up. So really keen to dive back into it.
I mean, it's got a lot of content, right? Because there's got multiple planets in
Yeah.
the base box.
Yes.
So that's why it looks so big. But in reality, it's not one of those long campaign games that you're playing, for a month or months and months and months on end, is it? It's
no,
like,
not at all.
play this planet, you complete the mission, and you can, I guess, stop when you finish the first mission, potentially.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, like I said, all of them have 3 tasks. In fact, if you backed the last Kickstarter campaign, they actually released a pack that added a new task to every planet's release. So there's actually
that's
4.
cool.
Yeah. So I actually haven't gone back to do all the task D missions yet and all the old planets. I'm just moving on. I might go back once I've finished all of those and go do task D through them all. So because it's such a clever system, they have, a fixed planet with some core mechanisms. They can just release a pack of cards. It's like, all right, here's a new mission with a few fun twists. And they've got universal counters in the core box that they can use to represent all kinds of things. So it's such a clever system. If you want to hear more about it and how it plays, we have sizzled it probably way in the past.
Yep.
Just go and find that episode. But yeah, Unsettled, man, it's something special. So glad I got that to the table again.
I assume they got some feedback about the original missions, because I think one of the feelings I had when I played it, I really enjoyed it, it's really fun, is that there's nothing really driving you to go from mission A to mission B other than completionism, whereas having a bit of a story between them, I think, would probably give you that urge to go ahead and keep playing the next one straight away.
Yeah, unlocking or finding out what the go is. Yeah, for sure. And
yeah,
I suppose, narrative in games is something I think the people that really enjoy it in there look for it, but a lot of people are just like, nah, play the game, like whatever. Like, because if I want a story, I'll go watch a movie or watch a TV show, read a book. But it definitely adds to it. Like, I think about with Arkham, how much better the writing has gotten from the first, from the first core box and then Dunwich, and now it's like they've just grown and grown and grown. So now I agree that a little bit of story does help, except for Too Many Bones, where I don't really read the story. Joe, tell us a little bit about Mindspace.
So Mindspace is one of those games that was released by, was it All Games?
All Play
Games, that's right. So it's the series in that small box series that they did, essentially. It's a game where you're essentially going to be drawing in your brain or on your brain, and it's essentially a polyomino drawing game where you're trying to fit in as many things into your brain as possible, emotions, feelings, challenges that you've got, that sort of thing. It is quite fun. It has dice, which is always fun to roll dice. It has polyomino shapes and trying to fit them in onto a grid in front of you. It has goals, so you're trying to do different things, and those goals change. So it's kind of similar to Cascadia, how you'll have different end game goals essentially for each type. So it's got that, and it's got end game points that you're going to be scoring essentially depending on what color you're drawing in the brain. So the way it works is you'll have there's a deck of, I think, like 18 cards that have different polyomino shapes. You'll line them out. You then roll dice that are of different colors based on the markers that are available for you to draw on the brain. And what number those dice roll are which of the cards that you're going to be able to draw that turn for that particular color. So, for example, if you roll the dice, there's a pink 1. The card in position 1, you put the pink dice next to it to show that for that shape, which might be an L shape. And then the different colors get you different endgame scoring benefits. It's a nice game. It kind of feels like Railroad Inc., except instead of drawing rails, you're kind of filling a grid, essentially, with polyominoes. Has that same feel to it in terms of the dice rolling and that sort of thing. So it's just really fun. I really enjoyed it. I played it once today with my Dan, and also I'd played it previously with Mike as well at the PAX last year. So I've played it a few times now. I would highly recommend it. It's one of those small box games that has quite a bit in it, and it's quite fun to play as well.
Yeah, I've played this before, and it is cool because you've got, like you said, you've got the different bonuses based on. So you've got like the greens, just you ticking off to get money. Is it orange? It's your biggest space. Is that how it works, or no?
Every time you draw an orange, you cross off a number, and
That's
then the numbers
right.
are increasing in size,
Yeah.
essentially. So
Yeah.
the leftmost number that hasn't been crossed off is what you score for
Yep.
orange.
Yeah. It is really fun. Like I think the Link of Railroad Inc.'s a good one.
Yeah.
I also feel like it's because you got the different quadrants as well. Who did
Yeah.
I play this with? I feel like I played with Mike. Who did I?
Yeah, Mike loves this game.
Yeah, I must have played it with Mike then.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember where I would have played it with him.
Anyway, who I would recommend it for is if you like polyomino games, but often with polyomino games, the boxes are quite big because there's lots of components you need to fit in.
Yes.
Whereas this is a polyomino game that you can kind of literally carry in your bag with you to work or to the pub or whatever and play it. So it's very portable and really fun decisions that you're making as you're doing it.
Yeah, and is each person's brain the same setup? Everyone's got the same setup.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it is.
It'd be pretty hard if it wasn't. But yeah, it's really good.
Yeah,
so
check it out.
Yeah, I agree. Jules, just before I talk about my last game, I want you to talk about the other part of the hobby that you do that you're so good at.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, like, I've been doing some miniature painting recently, some of my own stuff as well as commission jobs, and just really been enjoying it. I spent 4 hours doing miniature painting, and I know in the past I would try and run like a once a month meetup, and life has just gotten very busy. It kind of fell apart when I moved to Sydney, but I do want to start that up again because it's just so much fun just experimenting, and it's been really cool as well to see Def posting his pictures in Discord, painting his Anachrony minis, and him going, this is really fun, like getting opinions and thoughts on what color should I do the next one. And it's been really cool to see that. I love it when people just give it a go. And whenever someone attempts to paint, even though if it's their first time, I always think it looks way better than the grey plastic. I'm yet to see someone that makes it look worse than grey plastic. That's what I was trying to say.
Jules, do I have a story for you?
Oh, boy.
I'll tell you later. Keep talking.
It's an off-air story.
I would agree. Like the stuff that we've seen on the Discord and even other stuff, but I have also seen some absolute shockers of like, how did I go? And it looks like they've just got the paint and smooshed it. Like you can't even see the pictures. It's just like Anytime you talk about your mini painting, I'm like, I've got to get back into it. I've got to. And then I think it just, the weekend flies by and whatever. And like, I've got so many cool miniatures I could be painting, and then Games Workshop releases another box set of more Stormcast or Skaven. I'm like, I want to get them. It's like, also got so many unpainted things as well.
Look, I do too.
Yeah.
I will talk about some mini painting a little bit later on, but I've talked about this before. I always have this tension between wanting to just paint up the minis in my board games to look good on the table and just have fun, and really pushing myself and trying to extend myself and improve my skills. But that takes time, and you don't get through many miniatures in that process. And I think I've probably decided I'm at a point where I do actually want to pursue more display painting. I've been going to some meetups for miniature painting, and I've been able to attend a few events through work that we've done miniature painting stuff as a part of the event for work. And I'm just loving it more and more. And I really do want to push myself and see what I can do. One of the things I did recently was probably, maybe it was a couple of months ago now, was there's a few people at work that all love miniature painting. And one of the guys at work said, let's have a little in-house painting competition. And so he 3D printed some really cool miniatures called like these Cauldron Knights. Saint Decent is the artist who sculpted those. And shrunk it down to a 32 millimeter scale. So if anyone had Warhammer bits, they could do some conversions if they so chose. And we just gave ourselves a couple of weeks to paint it up for fun, and then put up a voting sheet, and everyone voted on who they thought was the best, basically. And it was just really fun to be given this miniature for free, and just there's no worries about, if I stuff it up, I have to strip it, or, it belongs in a game, so it's got to look good or whatever. It's just its own piece of artwork, and there's no restraints, and I can do whatever I want, right? And I really pushed myself with that model because I was having so much fun. The first night I started painting it, I was painting and completely lost track of the time, and found it was 12:30 at night. I just was so lost in it. And what was really cool is I ended up winning that little in-house painting competition, and he printed me the large full-scale version of one of the miniatures that were painted. And so now I have that, and I've prepped the mini, I've primed it, and I want to make a really cool display piece using it. So I'm pretty excited about that. Yeah, just been doing a lot of painting recently over the past couple of months, and absolutely loving it. I'd love to do something in the community again, and get people meeting up again.
I think in the early days of the podcast, we were on an episode together. Funny enough, we were on an episode together, and we talked about painting. I think we should do a Patreon pod about painting.
Oh yes,
we should do that, and if someone else from our group wants to get involved too. But I know Adrian's done a bunch of painting as well, so maybe we can get a few of us on there. But yeah, I love it. It's something that I look at my box of paints, which is just sitting down here. It's literally behind me as I speak, and I just go, and I agree with you. You can get lost in it, and I've probably said this before, so forgive me, but it's just that there's satisfaction when it looks so good, and like, I don't think I'm an exceptional painter. Like, I don't think I'm very good, but you're right. It just looks so much better than the grey plastic, and And if you do play something like Warhammer or Star Wars or something like that, and you see it all on the table and it's all painted, it's just like, it brings it to life. It's so nice. It's such a great little sub hobby.
I would say for people who have thought about it and never taken the dive, I am not creative at all. I'm not a painter. I'm not a drawer. I'm woeful at all of them. It actually isn't hard to do a passable job on minis with some good techniques. I use the Reaper Bones beginner kit or starter kit, I think it was called. It's got like a green picture, and it did a really good job of teaching you the basics with their little manual in there. It gives you some minis, and it teaches you the basics of base coating, washing, dry brushing. So it actually, and you get to the end of it, and you're never going to be like, this mini's going to win awards unless you're Jules. You're like, this looks really good. This looks actually good. So it's actually not that hard to do a good job. So if you've been putting it off for a while, I'll just jump in and give it a go. It's a very mindful exercise, like you guys said. You're engrossed in it. You're not thinking about all of your worries. It's a nice thing to kind of be in the moment.
Absolutely.
And YouTube has great tutorials as well. And they're very good in being like, I mean, they're awesome. They're the experts at it, but like Games Workshop have good ones. Now they plug their paints in them. They're fine paints. I know whatever, like they're the ones I go to because I like the colors or whatever. But, if you have other ones, but there's also like independent guys as well that have, and girls, but independent people who have their different channels, and it's really good. Just before we get into the sizzles, I just want to quickly talk about a game that I think, Joe, you're interested in called Rebel Princess. This is pretty much Hearts with a new coat of paint. So I got to play this at PlayCon with Jace, Anna, Sarah, and Ian. And we had a lot of fun doing this, even though we mistakenly didn't play one crucial rule, which would have changed a lot of things.
That old chestnut.
That old chestnut. But yeah, so if you've played Hearts, you pretty much know the rules of Rebel Princess, where you effectively, in the place of the hearts, you are instead playing princes, and you want to have the least number of princes at the end of the game. What's cool is that there is a green nature, like wild nature set of cards, and within that is the frog. And the frog is actually a prince, which is worth like 5 of these prince, their skulls and all that stuff. And the whole thing is the princess is having a party and you don't want to be wooed, like this whole thing. So I actually think it's quite a cute theme. But the other thing that goes along with it is that you have a princess card where each person has a special power, and that might be during the round, it might be at the beginning of a round, or so on and so forth. And then the other thing that happens is at the beginning of the round, there is a new rule, and sometimes that new rule is that they will introduce a trump card because there's no trumps. It's just the highest card takes all, and similar to Hearts is you cannot play a heart until hearts have been effectively broken. So you can't play a prince until someone first plays a prince. So you're supposed to follow suit. If you can't follow suit, then you can play a prince if you want. But effectively, it just means that you may lose or you may win it and then take the prince. But yeah, it's just, we always talk about how trick takers are back in vogue, and I feel like we've been talking about it for like more than 6 months. So it's not really in vogue; it's just part of the gaming landscape now. But I was just really taken aback, like this game of Hearts, which is as old as time, and now they've just a couple of tweaks, and really cool artwork. They've used stuff that people know, and that the princesses are Snow White, Rapunzel, Cinderella, and all that stuff. People know all those sort of Grimm/Disney fairy tales. It's not Disney; it's not a Disney game, but they do use those the princesses that you're probably aware of. But yeah, you've played it, Jules?
Yeah, I've played it. I played it close to a year ago now, and yeah, it's really good. I think I played it maybe twice actually. I have it on pre-order at the moment, but what I forgot was at Gen Con they had a promo card there that actually had a mirror in the card.
Oh, nice.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it looked spectacular, and I was like, no, I forgot about the promo. I wanted to pick that up because I do want the game. I really enjoyed playing it. But I have seen since that they will sell that promo card on the web store.
Cool.
So
yeah,
awesome. It has an actual little mirror in the card,
awesome.
which is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Have you gone to play it yet, Joe?
No, I was so jealous when I saw you guys playing it. It's one of those games where it's the theme. I love the theme. Princesses being like, get lost princes.
Yeah.
I love that. That's such a cool theme, and the art is beautiful. The artist is Alfredo Caceres. And it's just so good. Like, it's so charming.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm really keen. I'm one of those games where I'm looking for this trick taker to dissuade me or change my mind about trick takers. Love. I also love that the publisher is called Zombie Paella.
Yeah, I know.
What a cool publisher name. That's so good.
When we were getting it out, Sarah was like, what? That's like the coolest name ever. And I was like, yes, pretty good, isn't it? Like, I was like, what the heck is a zombie player? But hey, I'm all about that. Yeah, so that's Rebel Princess. It's, like I said, it's Hearts with a new lick of paint, but it's really, really, really fun. And, it's just nice to have these little trick takers. All right. So, Jules, I might circle back to you because I feel like we might have a little bit of a chat about an old game that I've talked about in the past.
Yes. So, not going to bury the lead. I'm going to talk about Magic the Gathering, and more specifically the Bloomburrow set, which is the most recent set. But I suppose I'll take a step back, and I'm sure I've talked about this at some point on the podcast before. I used to play Magic the Gathering a lot. It was the first game I got into. It's my earliest memory as a kid. I'm 99% sure it was back when I was in year 4 in primary school. I don't know where I got the cards from. I think it must have been a Christmas gift or a birthday present or something. Or maybe I just bought it with pocket money. I don't remember. But I bought a pre-constructed deck from Odyssey. That was the set that I started with. And you can look up how far back that was. 2001, I believe. And I remember actually really trying to learn the game because I also had Pokemon cards at that point, but I wasn't playing the game, I was just collecting them because, Pokemon. But I actually really tried to learn Magic the Gathering, and I had a couple of friends that also got decks. And I remember playing, during lunchtime with unsleeved cards on the concrete on the ground.
You heathen! You! How dare you?
Is this where you reveal you had a Black Lotus in that, in that
no.
deck?
Unfortunately, I was too young when that came out, but I have very fond memories, that specifically, playing the game on the ground, unsleeved. I didn't know what sleeves were back then. And I kept playing it from that point. And obviously, as I got older and went through high school, I was playing more competitively in local stores and, constructing decks and experimenting. I really did love the game, and I had quite a lot of stuff. Then I took a break from it for a while, and when I thought, I was like, do I want to keep playing? Do I want to jump back into this? I decided no, and I just sold everything at that point because I was doing more miniature painting at that time, I think, and I decided I wanted to do that. So fast forward to recently, Wizards of the Coast did reach out to us and offered to send a Commander deck to us for review, which I took from the group. And when I used to play, Commander is one of the formats. You've got standard format, and then there's Legacy and Commander. There's lots of different ways you play the game, but essentially it's your deck is constructed in different ways. When I used to play, it was only standard. There was the way of playing Magic and nothing else. But there was a homebrew version called Elder Dragon Highlander, which is now known as Magic, the Commander format. But this has become the most popular format people play now, which is really strange to me because it's more of a social game than a competitive game when it's in Commander format. In that the decks aren't built to be stupid, crazy strong. You have 100 cards and there only can be one of each copy. Or less cards. And anyway, I got the deck, and Bloomburrow is the latest set. The art, I will say, is absolutely stunning. Magic has come a long way since I used to play, and the art just keeps getting better and better. And they do things like Universes Beyond now, where they have IPs like Lord of the Rings, they've done Warhammer, they've done Fallout, Assassin's
Doctor Who.
Creed. Yeah.
Transformers.
So, Transformers were slotted into the Brothers War set. And it's a way, obviously, to try and get people suckered in, and I'm sure it's working. But this particular set, Bloomburrow, wasn't an IP, but it was sort of that Mouse Guard-esque sort of artwork and vibe. All the creatures are now, all the characters that are in the lore are turned into an animal form, and yeah, it's stunning. But I want to talk briefly about my experience. I have played several games with this deck they sent. It was the red and green mana deck, and it was all about big stompy creatures. And that was the way I used to play.
Unity, yes.
I used to run the decks that had massive creatures, or the ones that get massive through heaps of tokens, and I used to have an elf deck I was very fond of. But playing Commander was something different to me. Now, I've played a couple of games over the past few years with other people's decks, but I hadn't actually run a pre-constructed deck, one you just buy off the shelf. And I have to say, the experience is really good. It's the deck is actually really, really competitive. Now, the last game I played with it, I was playing with people that had kind of ridiculous decks that they've built. And it was able to keep up for the most part. But again, because the format of Commander is very social, you're kind of all like hitting each other equally. No one's like ganging up on one person, because that's not really the vibe of how it's supposed to be played. It's not supposed to be that hyper competitive thing. It's more whatever player sort of sticks their neck out of playing something stupid crazy, that all right, now we've all got to stop that, and when it's dealt with, then we can pivot to whoever else is the threat. That's the vibe. And thought the artwork was absolutely stunning for this set. I think that they've done a good job. I can only comment on the Bloomburrow set, but I think they've done a fantastic job making those pre-constructed decks really easy to pick up. It's not heavy with all the different mechanics. They've really pared it down to something that's quite simple to learn. I had a good time. Now, I don't know if I can see myself playing Commander here and there, but because it's so social, I think I said it to one person, I'm too competitive for the Commander format.
Jules.
I'm just being honest.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. I'm too competitive for it. Now, playing it 1 versus 1, fantastic. But when you're supposed to play 4-player, I think Magic is something I really won't ever dive fully back into, because if I did, it'd be wanting to play standard format and going hardcore, and that costs a lot of money. I don't want to do that again. But picking up a Commander deck here and there, if one set really jumps out at me that I'd like to have fun playing, I can see myself doing that. But Bloomburrow, I think, was actually a really good set for people that haven't played Magic before to actually jump into, because the couple of previous sets, Outlaws of Thunder Junction was a recent one, it was all Western cowboy themed. That had quite funky mechanics in it, which were
guns.
a little... Yeah.
Guns and magic. What?
It's bizarre. But yeah, there were some mechanics that were a little bit hard to understand and actually do well with, but Bloomburrow was sort of brought back to a bit of simplicity, which I thought was really cool. So look, if you ever are curious about Magic, that's a whole huge universe to step into. If you're looking for a set, I actually would say Bloomburrow is a good place to jump in if you so desire.
Joe, you're an MTG guy, aren't you? Or no? Am I wrong?
You are wrong.
No, I'm wrong. Oh, I thought
I played it. I played it with my brother. My brother got really deep into it for a while. He had a lot of different Magic cards. But for me, I think it's interesting because the things that you said Commander does fix the things that I didn't like about Magic, which is that having to keep up, the hyper competitiveness.
Yeah.
When I played with my brother, there was only standard. There was no Commander.
Yep.
I'm pretty sure. And so, those spaces also weren't the most queer friendly. So it's like all these things that prevented me from really enjoying it all that much. But when I would play it, I would enjoy the actual game. Like you've said, Jules, it's up my alley. Being mean to a friend in the card game is awesome. I love Netrunner, for example. I got really deep into Netrunner. That was the living card game that I got really deep into.
Yeah.
But yeah, those things, you've piqued my curiosity to give it a go and see.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said, it's a pared back set. The art is gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous for this set. I thought some of the other recent sets looked good, but this animal theme is like on point.
They've knocked it out of the park.
Yeah.
What I do miss is, and they don't, because they have these Commander decks now, I miss going to the store and then whenever the new block would release and the new set would release, just getting the red and green standard, the pre-constructed deck, and getting that, and then maybe like 10 booster packs or something like that.
Yeah.
And just going, and then we would make our own decks and they would be so poxy and garbage. And and my brother, who's like a savant, would just like, well, no, I'm going to construct this because I know that it's got this probability of coming out. And I was just like, shut up, like stop it, play the game. But yeah, it's never going to leave. I don't think. Like,
No.
I'll always be interested in it. I'll always want to play it. I'll always be checking out the next set and be like, oh, is Kamigawa back? Because Kamigawa was my favorite. Kamigawa was the Japanese samurai,
Yes, I know that one.
Oh, that was peak childhood for me, to be perfectly honest. When Kamigawa came out, and then whatever else was going on in my life, I should have just, that's it. I wish I could go back to that top. Unabashedly, I copped grief. I don't know, Joe, if you've ever gone back and listened to our very first top 10s. I copped grief because I put Magic in my top 10 games.
You did.
Like, it's not a board game, and Jules talking about it on the podcast.
It definitely fits.
It does fit. It absolutely does.
No,
I think one of the things I did want to say is, as I said, I've dabbled recently here and there playing it, but I don't have a collection of cards.
Yeah, me neither.
But I think my favorite way to play it now is sealed. So that's when you get 6 booster packs and you construct a deck out of whatever you pull.
Oh.
And now there's a little bit of knowledge and, I suppose having to understand the mechanics of the game to build a proper deck. But that, I think, is the most fun way. You just make the best of what you've got, basically, and you play a small round robin with all people just constructing decks out of 6 packs, and you just have a supply of land cards that you use.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, there won't be enough lands in those packs. It's just you use the cards, and then you just put whatever lands you need in there. You can buy a box. It's called a land station, where it's like 20 of each colored land or something that's designed to fill them out. But obviously, local game stores will just give you those. They usually have boxes and boxes of land cards.
Because no one ever takes the land cards. From
exactly.
Unless they're like a artifact land or something like that.
Yeah,
like a rare one. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, that's Magic the Gathering, the Bloomburrow set.
Made by Wizards of the Coast, if you weren't.
Yeah, if you didn't.
Before we talk about another WotC game, Joe, tell us a little bit about
Umbrella. So Umbrella, I'm going to be teaching at the Melbourne Game Day coming up. So I got to play it a few times today in a row with my Dan, and really fun. I think Jules has already spoken about it on the pod, but didn't sizzle it, so I wanted to talk about it in a bit more depth. The theme of Umbrella is very charming, although it doesn't really come through in the game. Yeah, the theme is you're essentially putting on a musical. I think it's called Sliding in the Rain is the musical, and so it's about having these umbrellas kind of going backwards and forwards on your personal player board, and that's kind of what it is.
I actually had no idea musical was the theme for the game. I didn't. To be fair, I didn't read any of the theme in the rulebook. I just assumed it was people walking in a busy city and shuffling past each other.
Which is what you would get. I think that's a very natural thing. I don't think the theme that's in the book comes through in the game. But I found that really charming. I was like, okay, let's give this a go. This is going to be interesting. It essentially it's an abstract game. Essentially requires spatial reasoning, so I'm bad at that. Dan's really good at that. And so I thought he'd enjoy it. So I got it out and we played it today a few times and really liked it. It gave me Azul vibes for sure, but I actually found the decisions in this game a lot more interesting than Azul. I'm not a huge fan of Azul. Dan loves it, so we played a bit, but you have your personal board. In the middle, in between your boards, you also have these crossings which have umbrellas on them. And so you'll start with one of each color on each of the crossings. You have sidewalks and you have the central crossing as well. To get new umbrellas onto your board to make up these patterns, if you gain them from the sidewalks, let's say you gain it from the left sidewalk because you want a green umbrella to make this pattern, you take it from the left sidewalk, it enters onto your board on the left in one of the rows, that pushes out the last umbrella of that row, and then that goes to the right sidewalk on the side. And so you're thinking about like 3 or 4 different things at the same time in terms of, I need to get this color here, but also I'm going to need this color over here for my next turn to get the color back onto a different row or a different column, for example. So it's a bit of 4D chess at sometimes when you're playing the game. So if you're doing horizontal moves with the umbrellas, you're getting it from the sidewalks, and then for vertical moves, you've got this central crossing, and you've got your own personal space on the board as well. So to change the board state vertically, you can gain it from the central crossing, which then pushes it down into your personal space, or vice versa. You can push up from your personal space and then put it onto the central crossing. And if you're playing with more than 2 players, you'll essentially have crossings in between you and the other players, and you'll have the central crossing which everyone else can access. So you're kind of interacting in that way. And there were many times today where in the 3 or 4 games we played, Dan completely scuppered my plans. And it's a very Azul-like in that way where you're kind of hate drafting. I don't think he was even hate drafting. He was just playing well and I was not.
Oh, I definitely did when I played.
Okay, well, there you go. Yeah. I don't put it past you, Jules. He would take a color that I really needed on that side and completely change my plans. The way you essentially score points in this game is you have these cards on the top of your personal board that have different patterns in that 4x4 grid where you want to make up patterns of the same colored umbrella on that grid. And if you make up that pattern, you then pass that pattern on to another player. So it goes off of your board, and you then place a scoring chip on you have an individual scoring tile as well. And you place it on the color that you scored it with that pattern. So if I've done a blue pattern, then I'll put it on a blue spot. And the way that you get points is you get points for each of those black scoring markers you get. You get points if you complete a set of, for example, we had a game where you could get a set of 3 different colors and it'll get you 5 points. And so you'll get points for that as well. You lose points if you've got if you've got chips in your own personal board towards the end of the game at the very bottom in that vertical space. So that's the game in a nutshell. The game ends essentially if you take up all the scoring chips or if you've gotten rid of all of your personal pattern tiles, essentially, is what you're using. Then you score it up and who wins. It's over in half an hour, really quick game, very nice. It was quite quick. It was a nice, what I kind of call a cup of tea game. So, nothing was too crunchy that it was blowing my mind, although there were a couple of points where I couldn't get the pattern that I wanted to happen. But, you could have a cup of tea, you could have some music on in the background, and you could play with your partner. It was great at 2 players. It worked really well at 2 players. What player counts have you played it at, Jules?
I only have played it at 4.
Okay, and what was that like?
Yeah, it was good. Like you're saying, those crosswalks in between players, it does mean the person opposite to you, you just don't really have much interaction with other than the middle.
Yeah.
In the game I played, I found there was just an abundance of pieces in the middle. So
interesting.
I couldn't mess with the other person, but certainly the sidewalks either side of me moving a particular color when you can see they're close to forming a pattern with that color. It's like, I'll just make your life a little more difficult. And just doing that just out of spite, unless it's going to benefit you, gets you nowhere, because the game for me was really about being as efficient as possible. You want to complete those patterns as fast as you can, and doing any other messing around otherwise, you're just going to make yourself lose the game, really.
And that's exactly why I lost, because Dan is very good with spatial reasoning, and so he'd get the pattern in like 2 moves.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, I can get this pattern. It's going to take me 4 moves to do it. Here we go. So he'd just pip me every time.
What's really fun is I had a moment playing the game where it's like, oh, if I move this piece here, it actually completes that pattern, and then next move it to set me up to do another pattern immediately, and that's where the satisfaction comes in.
Was never going to be me. But I can imagine. I'm imagining that satisfaction.
Not even by like fluke or mistake. Surely you must have like had a couple that you're like, oh my god. Oh, okay.
No.
I think what I found really clever is you can set yourself up easily for those moments if you just keep grabbing like 2 colors, because the patterns on that you're trying to form are just gray. It's not like this card is you have to use yellow ones.
That's
you can
true.
use any color you want.
That's
as
true.
long as it's available on your scoring tile. But
that's true.
The trick was that if you do start to spam, let's say, heaps of yellow umbrellas, well, eventually all your yellow scoring tokens are going to be filled up, and then you do not want any yellow on your board. It is completely useless to you. So I found there's a really great tension in trying to balance all of the colors, and then also trying to move them out once you've scored all the potential scoring for a particular color.
Have you seen the game, Conor?
I have. I would very much like to play it. It's I love those spatial types of games. Yeah.
And it's quite clever. Like that bumping colors in and out, I don't think I've seen in a game before.
No, I can't recall.
Yeah, so that kind of making those patterns by bumping things in and out is a fun puzzle, even when you're like, oh no, I can't do that because it's going to wreck it and I'm like messing it up. And so that's actually, it was quite fun to do. Highly recommend it. It's Umbrella, very colorful. I think it was released this year.
Yeah,
I
it was
believe.
this year. It's Pandasaurus.
Yeah. And I'm going to be teaching it at the Melbourne Game Day. So if you're in Melbourne, you're listening to this and you're keen to give it a go, we're releasing the teachers the day before you hear this. So if there's space, jump onto Aftergame and happy to teach it to you.
Very good.
Sounds great. That's very kind of you, Joe. I'm happy to teach. I'm happy to teach it too. That's just
I'm a
lovely
nice man.
You are nice until you got to play a game with him and stab you in the back. I'll round out the sizzles by harkening back to, I don't even know when Dungeons and Dragons came out, but yes, Jules?
It was 50 years ago. This is the 50th anniversary this year.
There we go. Well, I now dub this the year of Dungeons and Dragons on the board game barbecue. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, hell yeah.
Mostly because there's no way we can stick to that. But yeah, I was very lucky to play a Dungeons and Dragons one-shot run by Mark, who is Ray's on our Discord. So you've probably seen him milling about. And he did a fantastic job. Jules?
I was just going to say one more fun thing. It's actually the Year of the Dragon this year as well.
Oh, there you go.
Pretty crazy, huh?
It is pretty crazy.
Jesus. Was that worth interrupting Connor?
It was. It feels good.
I think it was. Okay. Connor, please continue.
Even when he's not playing games with me, he's still mean to me. So, so Mark was the DM. He did a fantastic job coming up with the setting, which was effectively like a haunted house, so a haunted manor that we had to go through and find a wizard or a lady who was a sorceress, I guess, who had mucked around too much with the trickster god. What's his name, Joe? The trickster god in Dungeons and Dragons? Or
oh God, no, you put him in the spot.
It's fine. It will come to me later. Anyway,
Loki.
No, it wasn't.
No, it's not Loki.
Not Blood Rage. But I also got to play with Locke. So Lockie, Greenie, JB. So if you've seen the picture that Dana put up for PlayCon of the four gents with the blue shirts looking very staunch, and that's those lads. So Mark, JB, Greenie, and Locke, who were at PlayCon, and then my good buddy Tom as well. And yeah, we had a range of different characters that we played as. I was a tiefling cleric who had a staff that could summon storms, and I had to roll a d6 anytime I attacked with it.
Oh, wow.
So this was like ongoing, and everyone's like, use it. And anytime I would get an attack, it would be the next turn I'd have to roll the d6. Well, anytime I would attack, that creature would die. So it was like, well, I never actually got to use it, and because it was a one-shot. And Mark actually put in a lot of effort coming up with it to make it fun, because I said, we'll make it something that is useful but could also be a real pain in the ass for the other crew as well, like to make their lives a living hell. Tom was a Beast Master Ranger who had a cat that JB's character kept confusing for a dog. So JB kept referring to the cat as a dog. And then we had to keep explaining to JB's barbarian, dwarven barbarian, that no, it's not a dog, it's a cat, and you cannot pet the cat, you cannot pet the dog. So JB was a very, I guess, one-minded, so narrow-minded, one-thought barbarian who just wanted to smash everything. So Durin was his barbarian dwarf, and if you catch up with JB, you ask him about Durin's backstory. It was very, very amusing. Locke was a halfling monk who he modelled as Monkey from the Legend of Monkey. So it was like good. Kung Fu, and do lots of flippies and stuff like that. And then Greenie was a gnome sorcerer called the Black Beetle, and I'm not even quite sure why he was called the Black Beetle, but I think he was sick of mining, and he found this rock that but it was green, but it was the Black Beetle. I don't know, it was something strange. None of our stories really made sense. That's what made it fun, but it was the whole process. So Jules, you were part of our sort of ill-fated D&D campaign.
Yes, I was.
And Joe was in the Discord when we were first doing it and giving us lots of advice, which was very grateful. Joe, you have played so much D&D, so I might come back to you in a second and ask you a couple of things. But I'd always want to do it, and playing Baldur's Gate and things like that as of recent, I'm like, yes, I really want to get into it. So when Mark offered it, I was like, please save me a spot. I would love to play. Mark's very creative, puts so much thought into it. He has said to me that he loves coming up with the backstories and the settings and the lore. And you've got to admit, like, the lore is pretty amazing for Dungeons and Dragons like that. And that setting is pretty cool. And even just like I knew stuff, it would be, this makes the most sense. So I'm going to go and do the other thing. And of course, Mark already knew that I was going to choose that. So he made sure that if I failed or didn't pass, bad stuff would happen. At one point, I think I was telling you, Joe, when we were playing BG, I failed something or took a skull out, and then all these birds with baby faces and swarmed us. It was so strange and so funny. There was this sea serpent that lived in a pond, and he coerced both Tom and JB to come for a swim, and the moment they stepped in the water, we had a battle against it. It was so good. I cannot give Mark enough credit for this. It was a lot of fun. I guess, and this is where I'll go back to you, Joe. Before playing both our campaign that we had, Jules, and this one, I didn't understand how much of a game was actually behind it. I thought it was storytelling, and the DM sort of just told a story and you went along with it. I know you've played a lot. Was that something that struck you as well, or were you already a tabletop role player and then went into board games? Because I've sort of gone the board games into RPGs route.
Yeah, I did the same actually. So I actually didn't start playing D&D until, or it would have been maybe 2017 was when I started, 2017, 2018. So relatively recent. And so I've only played 5e, 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons. I didn't play any of the other editions. But I just love it. And I think you're right. I think there's a lot of maths behind it. A lot of math, but you don't need to know it to enjoy it. And I think one thing I've always thought is there's no right way to play D&D. Some people play it because they enjoy the role playing and they enjoy the narrative. Some people play it because they enjoy the fighting and the maths and all that stuff behind it. And so both of those are equally valid. And both of those, as long as everyone's on the same page at the table, you'll all have fun, essentially, is how it works. So, and I think it's been different for different editions of D&D as far as I'm aware from my reading. I think 5e is the loosest. At least it gets in your way to play it how you want to play it. Whereas I think, 4e was very mechanics heavy, so it's more like a board game.
It's like, oh no, you're 10 feet short of being in range to cast that spell,
Yeah, that sort of stuff. And whereas, 3rd edition, I think, was more similar to 5th edition in terms of the role-playing stuff, but it had just so many rules on rules on rules on rules, and there's these jokes that people make of like adding on like 20 modifiers to a roll in 3rd edition. So the thing I love about 5th edition, it is pared back, it is approachable for new players and experienced players alike. It's just so fun.
Have you looked into the next edition that's imminently arriving?
I haven't really done a lot of reading. There's been a lot of back and forth and uproar about it. It's happened with every edition of D&D. People have complained about it. I think I haven't really looked all that much into it, just because once it's here, then I'll probably play it. And I'm one of those people that doesn't really look into it all that much. Mm-hmm. My understanding is that it's backwards compatible with 5th edition, essentially. So it's just kind of making tweaks, I think.
Yeah, that's my understanding. It's not a radical change.
Correct.
Yeah,
correct. The thing I love about D&D is that it's not board gaming. It's different to board gaming. But what it is essentially is you're getting around a table with friends, or even I've gotten around a table with people who are strangers who have become friends. I think that concept that you said, Conor, of the DM telling the story and you're just kind of the puppets playing along was also my impression. But it's not that in a good game of D&D. It's collaborative storytelling. So it's like essentially make believe with your friends, and you're making the story. You're creating these moments that you remember as if they're real things, and they're just so hilarious. Or, I've cried during games of D&D. Like, there's nothing else like tabletop role playing, I think. Even, BG3, for example, that's not quite the same because you don't have that kind of narrative, emotional element that I think you get out of D&D.
Yeah, I've only played a few one-shots. I'm not a massive role-playing person, but I'm keen to jump in when someone else is willing to be a DM and things like that. But yeah, you're absolutely spot on, Joe. It really does create so many memorable moments with people. And my most memorable one was a one shot my brother ran, because he's more into D&D than I am. That was a Christmas themed one. And the crux of that story was essentially his naughty and nice list was actually like a magical item that dictated people's behavior, whether they were naughty or nice. So when we flipped all the names, Santa went real bad. And we pulled out all these items from his magic sack, and essentially each box would open in his infinite bag of goodies. We'd roll a D1000 for all these stupid random effects. Anyway, we happened to roll 1,000. We just use a Google generator number to do the rolling, which made the nearest sun go supernova, and we had 8 minutes to live. And it was just like absolutely ridiculous, right? But it was just, it started off as just, we're in a tavern and, you know, nothing much was going on, to the nearest sun went supernova. It was just wild. So, yeah, very memorable.
Yeah. And I guess if someone who is, I'm a primarily board gamer, if I can go and play something like a one shot of D&D or any RPG and really enjoy myself, I think most people would. I will say that I adore the setting of Dungeons and Dragons. It's that typical, fantasy setting that I like, where lots of species are existing together and races and all that stuff that goes on with it. So, yeah, I'm really excited. I know. I think I might touch on this a couple more times before the episode ends. So, this week for ourselves, we had Umbrella, Magic the Gathering, Bloomburrow, and then D&D as well.
You know that game you've been wanting for a long, long time? The one that's been on your wish list for ages? Yeah, that one. The one you've been adding to your cart and taking off again, umming and ahhing about whether you should get it or not? Well, I'm here to push you over the edge and say go to adventgames.com and add that to your cart right now. I bet you that Dean has a great price on it. He's got great customer service, flat rate shipping, and there's so many other goodies to explore on the website. Wonderful categories, all organised to pick the exact game that's right for you and the group that you play with. So head over now, don't hesitate, to adventgames.com.au and add that game to your cart now.
All right, a couple of announcements. First up, as Joe said, our next Melbourne game day is the 21st of September at the Gaming Arena in Coburg. We're at a different location, different venue this time, so just be aware. Got the Brisbane game day on the 16th of November, so save the date. 2 rooms and a boom. Tickets on sale this week, so keep an eye on our socials. Don't wait, as tickets always sell out, and we end up with quite a wait list. That's just Adrian big noting the Brisbane game day. He tells us it always sells out. I don't know. I think he just gets random people off the street. And of course, the granddaddy of them all, not WrestleMania, PlayCon. We have a date for PlayCon. It is the 11th to the 13th of July 2025. That did go out on our socials this week. So very, very excited. We've already discussed what we're going to do. It has to be bigger and better. We cannot wait. We had such a great time. As talked about, we're still talking about some of the stuff that we did during PlayCon, and it's 2 months later. So yeah, super, super great times. All right, so let's move on to last week's question of the pod, and it was Father's Day when the crew recorded, Aussie Father's Day, mind you, and it was, what games do you enjoy playing with your dad or as a dad? I mentioned playing all types of games with my dad: Warhammer, Pokemon, Magic the Gathering. He was an OG Magic the Gathering dude. Jules, you would have got along with him quite well.
Yeah.
So yeah. Jules, before you read out some of our responses, what games do you enjoy playing with your dad?
Mine would have been classics like chess, Scrabble, a little bit of Catan, but not a whole lot. But chess probably is the main one for sure.
What about you, Joe? And as a dad?
Every game now I play is as a dad, so that's boring.
I hear peekaboo goes hard in the house.
Duplo whistle.
More singing wiggles at the top of your voice.
Oh, yes,
anyway.
yes.
My dad's not really much of a gamer, but I do have memories of playing an Italian card game called Scopa.
Yes.
So I think Dana's talked about it before.
She's mentioned it, yeah.
Yeah, so we played that a lot growing up. as well. Yeah, and actually we played Happy Families. I think I talked about that on the previous pod as well. So played Happy Families together, and that's card games with the thing to do with Dad.
Yeah, nice. All right, Jules, do you want to run us a couple of responses from people from the community?
Yeah, sure. So Instagram, I'll just pick a couple from here. We've got Nano Battle said, my dad's all about standard deck games like Conquain? I don't know that one. But recently we've been playing Oversiege and it's a lot of fun. Summer's Nerd said, any game my kids want to play, I'm in. And Board Game Addict UK said, as a dad, Rhino Hero, Carcassonne, and what? She's 5.
That's what with an O. I'm not
Yes.
familiar with that one.
I
But
don't know that one is, but yeah.
Yeah. Joe, you want to run us a couple from our Discord community?
Yeah, so Manny from the Discord talked about his own kids. So he said that he's started to see that he's had an influence on them in their enjoyment in playing games, starting with, the simple Harbour Junior kind of games, which both of his kids love. They're both 7 and 3.5. And the thing that he's really enjoyed so far is that his son is starting to get old enough that he can play some of quote unquote dad's games or the harder games into the mix, which has been really fun. And then his daughter's also really interested in tabletop gaming as well. So she's hassling him to play games every night. And her current favorites are Dragomino, Monsieur Carousel, and Orchard. Spenny from the Discord said, I definitely got my love for competition from my dad, whether it be Take Two with Scrabble tiles, trick takers like Wizard. I haven't heard of that one. Or good old Boggle. It's play to win, no excuses. Spenny,
Boggle,
man of my heart. It's play to win, no excuses. More recently, he's loved playing Can't Stop, Sequence, Just One, and Scout.
Nice.
Scout's so good. Chris, I'll talk to him from the Discord, said, I don't really mind what game it is as long as my kids are playing it with me of their own volition and are having fun. I realize they aren't always going to want to play games with me, so I'm just soaking it all in each time they ask me to play games with them. And finally, Matt from the Discord said that growing up, their dad played games like Escape from Colditz, Hero Quest, and Battle for the Galaxy Xylatron. That sounds awesome. That sounds so 80s. Battle for the Galaxy Xylatron. Just there and there. Yeah, that's it. Then later, as I got older, games like Panzer Leader and other full-on military strategy games as he was a tank commander in the army.
All the best men are tank commanders.
So good.
All right, and then I'll round out the Facebook responses. So we had Dion Allen saying, Dad used to beat me constantly and without mercy until one day I was good enough at chess to beat him. I'm glad that they added at chess. I was a bit worried we also played a lot of games like Rummy.
Oh, God.
I love that he was never easy on me. He would help me until I knew how to play and would question my reasons for some moves, but would have to earn my win. Yes, so that's great. Stephanie McRae said cribbage, bridge, Yahtzee, gin rummy, and other card games. And Suds McDuff finishes us off with, as a dad, I love playing games with my kids. My son holds top spot with people I have played games with. He's even now started making his own games, very much inspired by the games we played recently. He loves Spicy, Jaws of the Lion, Hexplore It, and he's my go-to person when I play a new game and test it with him. Not that I buy many new games. And he also had a cheeky, winky emoji to go along with that one.
Sure.
Yeah, so you lion, Suds, you lion.
Yes, son, this present of a board game is definitely for you.
Yeah. It's like when I bought one of my girlfriends an Xbox once. This is definitely for you. Yeah. I thought we had talked about the enjoyment we'd had with tabletop RPGs. So I thought our question of the pod could be for everyone else, and we've sort of gone through this already. So straight over to our listeners, what are your thoughts on the growing popularity of the tabletop role-playing games compared to traditional board games? So I think we've done a pretty good job of knocking that one on the head for us. So as per usual, it's not up to us. It's up to you guys. So please get in contact with us on any of our socials, on Facebook, Instagram, in our incredible Discord community that I hang out on every day, and it gets me through my days. And of course, X, formerly known as Twitter as well. Speaking of our Discord and the rest of our great social media, it would be remiss of me not to mention our Patreons. As if you'd like to support the podcast, you can always go to patreon.com/boardgamebarbecue, sign up to donate and get exclusive content to podcast episodes that we record just for you, and also events. We just had the Jackbox party, which was last weekend, that Jace ran for us. So thank you for that. But if you cannot support us, there are plenty of other ways to podcast without donating. The easiest way is to tell your mates and buddies. You can go to Apple Podcasts and leave us a star rating and review for us, or use Spotify's star rating. It only takes a few seconds of your time, but it means the world to us. And of course, Dan is still reading out the 5-star reviews. My favourite was still Sub-Zero Joe's one where he talked about playing Arkham. That was a great one. You can also get involved in the Board Game Barbecue community by joining our Facebook community, following us on X, Instagram, and on YouTube. We're now uploading our episodes to YouTube in audio format. And of course, there is our Discord community, my second home at the moment, where there's always games and conversations going on. Get involved and support the show. All links are in the show notes. All right, now I'll be honest with you guys. I used to dread this part of the show. I used to be like, oh, whatever. But I am so excited. Like, I am so excited to talk about what we're excited about. We're going to tell the community what we're fired up about. Joe, what are you fired up about?
Oh, I'm fired up about the Melbourne Game Day. It's been a long time between drinks, so very excited to see all of our friends and new friends potentially coming along to the game day, having a good time, teaching some games, which I love to do, and just seeing everyone have fun. It's going to be really good. It's going to be a great time. I'm excited for the new venue. I think that's going to be really interesting. One thing I really enjoyed talking to them was that it's a venue that is run by gamers. It was so refreshing to have these conversations about a game day with people who understood gamers, and so seeing what that space is like, I think is going to be really interesting. So I'm very much looking forward to that. Also, hot off the presses, we had our usual D&D people who run the D&D sessions not be able to make it for this particular game day. We found out today, and so I'm going to be running a one shot at the game day, Melbourne Game Day coming up. So if you're interested, have a look on After Game, sign up to the D&D session. It'll be released by the time you're listening, and come and learn D&D with me.
I'll tell my mum that Handsome Joe is running the D&D session this time, and she'll be there. She'll be there. Like, resist. I know, right? Yeah. Jules, what's got you fired up?
It's miniature painting. I talked about it earlier, but more specifically, man, it's hard to break away from doing oaths. I've realized what I've written down here is pretty much an oath. But
you're excited about it.
I'm excited about it. I'm fired up about it. As I said, I've really battled between this tension of doing more, high quality display painting versus just getting my board game minis painted. And I said I want to do more display painting. So I probably just over a month ago bought my very first Spira Mirabilis. I think that's, or Mirabilis. I don't know how to pronounce that last name very well, but that's the artist name for a particular guy who hand sculpts miniatures and then gets them cast and then sells them. And very, very famous and popular within the display painting community. I recently bought my first one of those and have actually bought a second now. The way he runs his business model actually is he puts up a notification saying, hey, this is going to go on sale within the next couple of weeks. And when the sale goes up on his website, you only have 48 hours to buy it, and then it's never printed again. That is it. It's like a one-print run. The only way you can get it is secondhand from that point onwards. So they're real sort of collector's items. And his sculpting is just so evocative and so well done. The pieces just have so much emotion and character. And I have one now, which is fantastic. It's this old gnome lady who's squeezing in like a bear hug an owl that's like
Oh,
Got its
yeah.
eyes almost popping out of its head.
Oh, yeah, I
I'm looking
can't
at it
wait to
now.
see
It's
this
so
painted.
cute.
Yeah, it's just so
cute.
cute. As soon as I saw it, I'm like, I absolutely love this. So I really do want to paint that up at some point. And the most recent one, which the sale, by the time you're listening to this, is now done, is a king that's sort of like hunched in his throne. And he's got a flower in one hand that's about to drop out, and a goblet that's sort of like leaning over. And there's just so much emotion in his face. And I really, really love those pieces. So I have those, but also I have, I guess, technically a Kingdom Death miniature that I bought at Gen Con, which is an alternative sculpt to one of the characters you fight in the game that I really loved. It's what's it called? The Biomech Butcher. And it's just a biomechanics version of the Butcher, who's one of the early characters you face in Kingdom Death, that I thought looked really cool that I could just paint as a display piece or play with it in the game. So I've got a plethora of options. All of this being said, I really do want to paint one of those things to the best of my abilities for Crimson Brush in 2025, which is held at CanCon. So it's in the Australia Day weekend period in January. That's something I'm really fired up for and I really want to do. So I will post some progress when I get started on that.
That's awesome, Jules. So good.
You are definitely fired up about that, Jules. I can tell. Yeah. That's awesome. I'm stoked for you.
Hey, Jules, my favorite Kingdom Death sculpt is the Flower Knight. Have you painted that one?
I have painted my Flower Knight, yes.
Send me the photo. I want to see what it's like. I really love that character.
Yeah. No, cool. That is one of my... Actually, I'd probably still say it is my favorite. And for that reason, I painted it as one of the first Kingdom Death minis that I did.
Cool.
So yeah, I'll send you a picture.
Awesome.
I am fired up about this Friday because Mark is running another D&D session. Joe is going to be involved in this one as well. Locke and Tom, and then our buddy Matt as well is going to be our fifth member. I think we're delving into a sunken treasure ship. Is that
cool?
Ooh, baby. Some people are already going, oh, do I get this or do I get that? I'm like, hey, whatever I get, I'm happy. So I think we were level 5 last time.
Yeah, cool.
And now we're level 7.
Ooh.
So yeah,
love something spicy. Some good stuff.
Yeah. So I'm amped. I'm fired up. I'm on the grill. Yeah. All right.
What character are you playing? I actually don't know what I'm choosing.
I'm a paladin.
Oh, yeah, love a paladin.
So I'm going to be fully pompous.
Yeah, so good.
I'm going to get my pompous on. So yep.
We're going to be so annoying together. I'm playing a swashbuckler, and I love playing annoying characters, man. Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, it'd be full on like odd couple type situation. I can't wait. Well, but what I am sad about is the episode has come to an end. Always a pleasure to see you two. Even though chat is just about every day, it makes my life more and more enriched. Good to see you both. Joe, I'll see you on Friday. Actually, I'll see you early that because we've got a BG sesh as well. That's so going for that. Jules, take care.
Yes, you too.
Enjoy your time painting.
Yes.
Can't wait to see it being painted. And everyone else, thanks for listening. Hope to speak to you again soon and keep playing some games. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.